Hey everyone, and welcome to the final of 3 exhibition games featuring an upgraded Single Strike Urshifu VMAX League Battle deck. If you just watched Game 2, then this list is going to look pretty familiar. The Single Strike is honestly a bit of an awkward fit for Expanded, so all I've really done here is swap out the standard fare for their expanded counterparts, and I've added an additional Umbreon V because in between the time I recorded these games, I got lucky and pulled one out of a locked pack. And also because you really need every advantage possible to survive in this format with a slightly slower, clunkier deck like Single Strike is. Now, all that said, the plan basically remains the same. We're going to pick 2 to 3 knockouts and smash as necessary with our Pokemon V, only going into the Pokemon VMAX if the extra muscle or critical gust is required. So, with our game plan all laid out, let's jump on in to Game 3. Alright, and going into our third and final match of this series, we are actually going to run into a very interesting take on a pretty big expanded meta contender right now. I will spoil the surprise a little bit. We are coming up against a Metal Box deck, but it's not the super heavy Zacian ones that move a lot of energy around, punch you for, big damage every turn with Brave Blade. It's not that, it's actually a much more defensive take on that particular deck, and I actually really appreciated my opponent's creativity once I kind of figured out what they were doing. I was a little surprised at first. I admittedly underestimated them when I saw, like DCEs flying around here and there, or just, their starting Pokemon, which is going to be Magearna EX. I thought, okay, that's an interesting play. The Turbo Zacians you see in Expanded don't usually run it because they're not too worried about like special effects or anything like that. But wow, ended up being actually a very inspired pick. So my opponent is going to get to go first, which is not great. I might have access to Laser Focus, which will let me threaten the big impact blow, and as long as they commit the energy to their Magearna here, I know I'm not getting KO'd at least on the following turn. But I will still have to be careful because I'm not KOing them on my turn either. And then whatever they follow Magearna up with is certainly going to be, an issue I'll have to address. Now, they go for a Dedenne here, and I spy the rare candy in their discard pile, so I'm starting to think, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what they're gonna rare candy out. I thought maybe they played like the 1/1 Duskull Dusknoir line, but I started to get really suspicious about that when I saw the Cobalion. And again, the Magearna, really this is something you want to attach to with a DCE. It's very hard to power up just on its own, not that Metal Box can't do it. But as soon as I saw the Magnemite, I went, okay, this is gonna be a Magnezone Bronzong take on the Metal Box. Now, this is one of those situations where I really wish I'd led Umbreon, because Umbreon plus a Boss's Orders, or a Guzma in this case maybe, would have helped me clean that up a little bit earlier. I certainly think the big mistake I made in this game was not addressing the Magnemites early on. But there also just wasn't much to work with here. So in this particular case, I only have the 1 basic energy in deck, so I laser focus, not even for the full effect. And now I just have to hope that my opponent doesn't come up with enough to maybe Brave Blade me, or as I will see later, go for a big hit with the other Iron Doggo. So they actually commit the DCE to the Magearna here, which makes me think, okay, they are actually going to go all in on that. And then I see the rare candy come down, which means that, yes, there is going to be a lot of metal energy raining down in my opponent's future. And then they drop the Zamazenta, which makes me go, okay, I see what you're playing at with the Magearna and everything else here. But they actually don't have a follow-up draw supporter or anything like that, so they're just going to go for the attack here, which is fine. I can at least wipe out some energy on the board here and stop them from shuffling that around after. But I definitely have to be careful because obviously Zamazenta is immune to a lot of VMAX attacks. The only advantage I have in this particular case is that Gmax 1 blow will of course go through its Dauntless Shield. And if I can inflict enough damage on it early on, then I can take it out with Impact Blow or Umbreon V's second attack. Now I'm just checking my math here as well quickly. Impact Blow, in order to take out Zamazenta V, requires 3 Single Strike energies, which I do not have access to right now. And, I don't have the Gust either to take it out, so I kind of just have to go, well, let me see if I can just better establish my board here, get myself set up for the follow-up attacks. Going for an extra Houndoom never hurts because you really, really always want to be able to accelerate the energy back. It at least gives you an ability to recover somewhat, as opposed to, me going for another Crobat, let's say, and just drawing a few extra cards, right? I might be left high and dry on the next turn without the ability to access even more of those necessary energies. But hey, thankfully, off of the 2 easy prizes, I do see another Houndoom, which is excellent, which means that if I have to go all in, let's say, on my Urshifu V, the ones that are still in the deck, I can potentially power those up in one go. Or, I might be able to at least get a really good hit into the Zamazenta V with Umbreon, and, Zamazenta V cannot OHKO my Umbreon V, so I will be trading pretty well against it. It's still not ideal, but hey, sometimes you just got to do this stuff here. And my opponent actually attaches the DCE to Zamazenta, which had me a little bit confused, but I guess, hey, if you got it in hand and you can accelerate off of Magnezone, you're not sweating it too much. And of course, they have access to the second DAA, which means that, yeah, they can rain down a ton of metal energy here as well. I haven't seen the Bronzong yet, though, so there's a chance that they've prized it and won't be able to shuffle around the energy too much, so that is something for me to be mindful of as well. But at this point anyways, if I can't find a way to easily dislodge this Zamazenta, then they can just keep punching me over and over again, and actually discarding my Single Strike energies if I'm foolish enough to attach to the active and not take it out in one go. So just waiting here, they just attach the ones, they're being pretty cagey about it. That leads me to believe that they don't have access to the Bronzong yet, which, is good for me. They might get it off the prizes now, which means that I should prepare for a pretty awkward situation. The only other thing I can do here maybe is go for Umbreon VMAX. If I go for Umbreon VMAX in this particular case, I can at least take out a DAA, and then I don't necessarily have to go through Zamazenta, because my opponent has the other DAA GX on the bench, and I do have a Guzma or 2 left in the deck. Then I certainly open up that line of attack as well. Basically, as long as I'm able to recover my Single Strike energies, then I can clean up both of those for my remaining 4 prizes. And the nice thing here too is I have access to that Scoop Up Cyclone, so even if Zamazenta gets a pretty good hit into my Umbreon VMAX, I can actually just recycle it and then set up for a Dark Signal the next turn. And you can see there, I'm prioritizing the Cyclone, pitching my draw supporters, because I don't want to get rid of that potential heal, because denying your opponent 3 prizes can really just break people's spirits in some cases. So, I want to hold on to that if I can. And, I do get just enough to set up my Urshifu V. I recover a couple of Rapid Strike energies, so I can accelerate them if I want to. But in this case, I'm actually just going to go for the attack. I am worried a little bit about Urshifu getting gusted and hit with Zamazenta, and until I see another Urn of Vitality, I don't want to burn those energies. Now, I do see the Urshifu VMAX off of the prizes as well, which means that as long as I can recover all of my Single Strike energy and, accelerate them all into the V, then I can go for Gmax 1 blow to punch through Zamazenta and clean up the game. But my opponent actually has something different in mind. They're about to go for one of the coolest cards that I think is floating around in Expanded, and this is definitely one that you see put to very good use in the Zacian builds. So they fetch the Dialga GX, which has the ability to basically attack you for 150 and then allow your opponent to immediately take another turn, basically giving them access to 2 attacks in a row. Now, I don't believe Dialga has the ability to KO me in its own right, so what my opponent will need to do is hit into me with Dialga first, and then bring Zamazenta up. And as long as they have enough energy to do that, they can actually take the KO here, because the Single Strike Roars have put me in range of their attacks. And they do have enough here to retreat the Zamazenta if they want. They can pitch the DCE, which they do, in order to bring Dialga up, and now they're going to have a nice 150 hit into me with Timeless GX. And of course, they're going to get the immediate follow-up attack because they can just take another turn, and they do have the energies required to pretty cheaply retreat the Dialga and then follow up with an attack from Zamazenta. And now, with access to the Metal Transfer Bronzong, they can do this pretty easily. They just have to pitch a DCE and a Metal Energy off of Dialga to retreat, and then they can still accelerate to Zamazenta like they do now, either with Magnezone or Bronzong, in order to bring it up for the KO. I'm just kind of waiting here, see what my opponent's going to do. I'm not sure if they have the draw supporter or not. If they don't, that's pretty good news for me, because if I take out the Zamazenta V with Urshifu, then they might be left without too much to do. But I am still pretty sad to see Umbreon VMAX go down, and I really got to give them the well played for that, because that was a really cool combo attack. Alright, so I'm just waiting for them to take their prizes, and kind of looking at the board, I'm like, alright, well, I should have enough in deck here to actually just clean stuff up with Urshifu V if that's the way I want to go. Because, you know, with access to Guzma basically and 2 Single Strike energies, I can just take out that Dedenne and it's not going to be too big of a deal. Actually, if I wanted to, I could have stretched and maybe taken out the Dialga GX as well. But, you know, I just thought it would be really funny to punch the rodent in the face. So I'm going to go just grab the Umbreon off of my capture energy just because. We'll evolve up into the VMAX, you know, and then we're just going to Guzma up the rat here and go for a beatdown for a pretty convincing KO. Well, that was certainly a quirky take on what's usually a turbo Zacian deck, but you know, hey, Zamazenta doesn't always have to play second fiddle to its bigger sister. And you know, I have to give it to my opponent for some very creative plays. The Dialga GX into Zamazenta combo in particular was quite inspired, and I think if they pulled that off earlier, there's a good chance that I might have been in big trouble for the rest of the game. Now, for my part, I actually think I could have prioritized my targets a bit better, but then, you know, once my opponent gave me those 2 Dedenne to clean up, I really wasn't going to have too much trouble finishing the game. And, you know, the nice thing about Urshifu V specifically is that it's actually a really good answer to Zamazenta, assuming you can access 3 Single Strike energies in a turn. So, you know, between maybe that and a Desperation VMAX into GMAX 1 blow, there were several routes to still securing the win at the end. And on that note, I will wrap it up for this Deck Boss mini arc. If you haven't already, go and check out the first episode to see a review of the Single Strike Urshifu League Battle deck, or go back and see some of the standard Single Strike decks in action as well. Either way, if you've enjoyed this mini-series, then smash that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We've got some fun deck profiles coming up to close the year out, including one demonstrating Jolteon VMAX's shocking success in Expanded. So, I will catch you all next time, guys, and until then, take it easy.